Jimmy Butler is back with the Miami Heat, and he's got jokes. Are the Heat better off playing the waiting game than playing Jimmy's game? Plus, LeBron James laments the Lakers' roster construction, and the Cavaliers may have found a trade to get them one step closer to a title. We'll tell you all about it today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Happy MLK Day to everyone out there. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore sporting the Kansas City Chiefs gear. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Hayes. Before we get into, we got a lot to get into this show, but before we do, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Chiefs hat that you have on there, Matt. And the big story in the NFL is, will the Chiefs three-peat for Super Bowl for the first time in NFL history? You also have the Chiefs mug on. Is that a Chiefs t-shirt as well?
It is.
Oh, you're just going all out. I love it. All right, so will they three-peat? The NBA has seen their fair share of championship three-peats, but will they see one again? That's my question, because you have Adam Silver espousing parity. We've had 6 different champions in 6 seasons. Will the three-peat return to the NBA in the next couple of decades? What do you think, Matt?
I mean, the future is unknowable, right? Like, things could change, but I'll say under this current CBA, no, I don't think it happens. Like, that's why I really think it's absurd the way that everyone kind of penciled in the Celtics so quickly. We haven't seen a repeat champion since the Warriors. Or the Celtics team, this Warriors team? No. And one of the reasons is it's very difficult to keep these kind of teams together long term. Now, the Celtics team returns most of the pieces from last year, but they're not quite the same team. And with the Red Sox the Fenway Group pursuing potential bid on the Celtics, there's going to be new ownership, which could mean changes in their structure. Hayes, I just don't think anybody's going to be able to afford to put together a three-peat. I just don't think the CBA is going to allow for it unless they make drastic changes, which I don't think is going to happen.
I think my answer to all this kind of stuff, especially when it comes to the new CBA, just depends on how well teams draft. If you draft your stars, then yeah, you can have a three-peat. But you have to draft, you have to development. That has to be the focus. But I do think it's going to be few and far between. There's going to be very, very hard to come. It's already hard to come by. But if it does, it's going to come via a team that just drafts extremely well and develops those players, and 2 or 3 of those players turn into stars or superstars.
Do we think OKC has the best chance of any team because of what you just said, because of how they draft and how many draft picks they have?
Yeah.
See, it's funny because it's like, what do you think? I think a good question for the audience is, what do you think the percentage chances are that the Oklahoma City Thunder pull off a three-peat versus what are the chances that the Oklahoma City Thunder do not win a title in this era? Like, because it almost has to be greater, this is what gets us, is we get so caught up in they're so good and they haven't been healthy and they have all these draft picks, and yet so many teams never get there. It's a really interesting conversation, Doug.
I'll put a poll on the YouTube page, youtube.com/LockedOnNBA. You can head over to the community page and vote on that poll. Let us know what you think in the comments. Maybe a discussion for a future day is the parity in the NBA that they're obviously trying to create. Is that a good thing for fans? Do fans love the parity, or do they really secretly, even if their team's not three-peating, do they secretly desire to see the three-peat?
We got to talk about it. I'll just say this. It's what every fan should want, and because NBA fans have been beaten down by the history of this league, they don't want it. They don't want it. They want a dominant team that's not theirs to soak up all the attention. I don't know why, but that's what fans seem to prefer. They should want it this way, though, because more teams have a chance to win the title.
Speaking of beaten down, the Miami Heat, welcome back Jimmy Butler. He returned on Friday with a little bit of dramatics in the form of a statement meant to mimic Michael Jordan's "I'm back" facts and wearing the Jordan 45 jersey to the arena. But on the floor, there weren't many fireworks. Heat lose by 20 to the Nuggets on Friday and beat the Spurs by 21 on Sunday. Let's go out to Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat for more on Jimmy's return.
Looks like a guy who hates his job. He's here. He's got to pay the bills. He doesn't want to lose another $2+ million by getting suspended again. He wasn't super involved with his teammates. He wasn't involved in the huddles. He wasn't really involved in any of the pregame stuff when everybody else is sort of dapping each other up and all these things. Was a lone wolf. Was just by himself, punching in and punching out. Here's what I know. Feeling around the organization is, this is crazy. This is weird. When is it going to be over? There is no reconciling this between Jimmy and the Miami Heat. If anybody out there has any last bit of hope, like, good for you, man. Like, you're much more optimistic than I am. But being around the organization today, there is an understanding. When is this going to be over?
Hayes, was this what you expected from a Jimmy Butler return?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I thought it may even be a little bit worse, to be 100% honest with you. I think the return of Jimmy Butler, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable. I do like the fact that they did start playing Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo together, something I thought that they would start doing at the beginning of the season. But as far as the things outside of basketball, this is pretty much what I expected it to be. It's going to be bad. It's going to be awkward. And until Jimmy Butler gets his way out, I just see it steadily increasing and getting worse and worse as this thing continues.
Hey, as our Chicago guy, can I ask you what your reaction was to them mimicking Michael Jordan with the facts? Because I'm kind of like, I know Michael Jordan, sir, and you are no Michael Jordan. That was kind of my thoughts on it. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, same. But, I gave it some leeway only because Pat just returned to Locked On Bulls, and we did the facts thing as well because we are Locked On Bulls. So, it's one of those things, cultural. You're going to do it. I do think it's like you aren't any Michael Jordan. What are you doing? But, hey, have fun with it.
I think it's fun. Look, I think we'll see how this goes. There's still some shots I think Jimmy's taking that are kind of like, and you're right. And, like, I think Wes is right. It looks like he hates his job. And there are reports out, and I've heard the same over the weekend. The Heat are still burning up the phones trying to find a way to get him out of town. And if they don't find one, then he'll stick around and they'll just kind of get through this. A big question here is like, all right, this is one thing when it's the weekend in January, right? If you go into a playoff series, where's his head's at? Like, can you trust him? Can you trust him in the playoff series? Like, that's where we've reached. Like, I don't know what do you do with him? If he starts pulling nonsense because he's mad at you, can you trust him not to pull nonsense in a playoff game? I like to think so. I like to think that Jimmy's professional enough not to do that. But, man, I don't see any way this ends well. They got to move him, man.
Well, when asked after Friday's game what Jimmy was going to do if he wasn't moved before the deadline, he said, quote, "I'm going to hoop." And so I guess the question is, if that return on a Phoenix deal or any kind of deal doesn't improve the Miami Heat in a significant way, are the Heat just better off letting Jimmy hoop post-deadline and address this in the offseason? Because I'm all about incentives, and I think all post-deadline, all the incentives for Jimmy Butler would seem to be on improving his play and thereby improving Miami's chances in a postseason to improve his likelihood of getting moved in some kind of sign and trade scenario. How do you see it, Hayes?
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, the way that this thing is going to shake out is going to be, it's not going to be what any of us expect. I do think a resolution is going to come at some point, and I think that a trade is going to happen, but I don't know if either sides are really going to be happy with what ends up shaking out here. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable. And at this point, I think it's going to get to a point where the marriage just has to end.
Let me ask you this. Okay. They want to be competitive, and that's like the real hold up here. They don't want to take back money, and they want to be competitive, and you can't really have both, right? Like, here's a question. If they just took Bradley's deal, like they just took Beal's deal, and he's guaranteed through 2027, right? So that's a problem. You would have, though, an expiring contract to trade in the summer of 2026 when there's so many free agents that are supposed to hit the market. Is that really, like, is that the worst thing? Is that the worst thing to? And Bradley may be like, no, you didn't want me before. I'm not going to approve a trade there. Okay. But I just kind of look at it and go like, man, maybe like that's a better option here. You'd have an expiring contract, and rather than this year when you're not going to get anything back for this expiring contract. You're going to lose the money. You're still going to have money owed. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the best option is here for Miami based off of their options here. Again, I just continue to be like, as long as they're looking to try and be competitive and win, quote unquote, compete for championships, I don't know. They're just slowly trudging themselves down into further and further mediocrity.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, we are going to talk about the Cavaliers' options on the trade market. A name coming up here, Cam Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets. Lots of teams want them. Can the Cavs pull off a deal for him? That's all ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or you just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to $1,000 your cash. You think LeBron's going to drop 30 points, or maybe it is Jason Tatum going to drop 30 points. Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. I've been using Prize Picks all season, and let me tell you, it's addictive. Last week, I picked Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Edwards for more than 25 points. That's the kind of action I'm talking about. And with Prize Picks Flex Play option, even if one of my picks doesn't hit, I can still double my money. Plus, once I hit, I get my money fast, sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's honestly the best way to keep the game exciting. Now's the perfect time to join up. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. You don't need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe, stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shear, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. The Brooklyn Nets are still looking to deal their way to the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and Cam Johnson is the name that keeps coming up among contending teams. Joe Varden of The Athletic writes, quote, executives from 3 franchises told The Athletic that Cleveland has expressed interest in acquiring 6'8" forward Cam Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets. Danny Cunningham discusses the fit on the latest episode of Locked On Cavaliers.
I think Cam Johnson is the perfect fit in Cleveland, right? He's a 6'8" wing. He's a great shooter. He's a solid defender. He doesn't necessarily need the basketball in his hands a ton to thrive on the offensive end of the floor. He is somebody that I think Cavs fans have had their eye on all season long as a player that could immediately step right in and just seamlessly fit with what the Cavs do. Let's talk through some trade scenarios here. The Cavs could trade Isaac Okoro, George Niang, Jalen Tyson to the Nets for Cam Johnson. Draft capital needs to be involved here too. Their 2031 first round pick, which would have to be unprotected for them to be able to trade. I think it's probably going to take 2, maybe 3 second round picks to make happen. The other package I look at, I'm going to do the same pick package. Karis LeVert, Jalen Tyson, Sam Merrill. I think that both of those packages are worth thinking about because Cam Johnson is a perfect fit for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay, Matt, would you also call the fit of Cam Johnson to Cleveland perfect? And do you think that those packages that he mentioned there, is that enough to entice the Nets?
I think it's a good fit. I think it's hard to find teams where Cam Johnson's not a good fit. Like, you just can't find any teams where you're just like, boy, would really hate to have him there, right? Maybe Boston, just because they've got already such good wings, but he fits pretty much everywhere. So it makes a lot of sense that he's got as much attention as he does. Like, the Nets are fielding a bunch of offers for him. I will say that I've heard that there's an expectation that he's actually not going to be moved, that by the deadline, they think his trade value is going to go down. I know Memphis has been frustrated in their conversations to try and get multiple players with Brooklyn. There's been talks of OKC. Jake Fisher over at the Stein line kind of reported that there hasn't been any sort of like real traction on that. I'm interested to see kind of how it goes. I think that LeVert and the 31 unprotected first is too much. Like, Karis has been really good for him. You don't need to give up like a good player and a first for Cam. You just need to give up the first for Cam. That's really what the Nets are looking for. They want a first round pick, and then whoever's got the best available first, I think that's what they'll take. So I think the Okoro Niang 31 unprotected first with the 2 seconds, that deal makes sense and gives you more optionality with the Cavs. Oh man, I choked up Hayes with
they're trying to kill me.
analysis.
There should be a huge market for Cam Thomas. You look at the size of his contract. Yes, he's due for an extension going into restricted free agency soon. But when you look at that contract and that size, he should be willing to give a first-round pick up for it because he's a first-round pick level talent. Cam Thomas is a good basketball player with still a lot of upside left as well. And if you're able to add him at the trade deadline, especially to one of these teams that is a playoff team that is more towards the top of their conferences, Cam Thomas can help you a lot, whether you're looking to bring a scoring off the bench, developing whatever else it is. A team that I wouldn't mind getting interested in getting involved, it will never happen for Cam Thomas, is actually the Golden State Warriors, but that's a conversation for another day.
I love that idea. That's a great idea, Hayes.
Very interesting. I do have some bad news for Matt, though. I was listening to the rest of that Locked On Cavaliers episode, and Danny called Cam Johnson Dean Wade Insurance. So I don't know what a Cam Johnson to Cavaliers deal would do for the future of Dean Wade in Cleveland.
I mean, I'm sorry that he doesn't appreciate the reason they win 31-5 with him. I'm just, what does Dean Wade have to do to prove that he's a winner besides win every game that they play?
All right, let's move on. There was an interesting battle for Los Angeles, round 1 going on. The Lakers and Clippers faced off for the first time this season, and for the first time in the Clippers' new home, the Intuit Dome. The Lakers lose big, 116-102, and frustrations in the locker room from a season-long consistency problem seem to be rising. Let's go to the Kamenetsky brothers over at Locked On Lakers for their take on why the Lakers cannot find a consistent way to play.
Lakers, we've mentioned this many times, like they can be a good team. The margin of error, they need to shrink it as much as they can in their favor through the control that they have over games. Like you're not going to play perfect. Like there are some nights where you do the right things and the shots don't drop. They need to control what is controllable more than they have been doing of late. I think a lot of that gets back to just like a sense of urgency when they are on the floor that I don't think is necessarily this group's collective makeup.
It's like 5 different guys on the floor, none of whom seem to be connected in any meaningful way to the other guys. And until that gets fixed, until like all of these circles and moving parts line up again in a way that is coherent to the people on the floor, none of this is going to look good.
After the game, LeBron James asked if the team could increase that margin of error internally. He replied, "Nah, that's not how our team is constructed. We don't have room for error, for much error. We have to play close to perfect basketball," unquote. He was backed up a little bit by head coach J.J. Redick, who also mentioned that small margin of error. Matt is smiling cheekily. What are your thoughts on these comments from LeBron James? Agree, disagree, feel like they're right on time?
Gosh, is it January already? Man, time flies. We're already to LeBron suddenly takes shots at front office who has never provided him the help he needs since 2020, while also consistently signing multi-year guaranteed deals, providing more security than he gave the Heat or the Cavaliers in any of his stops. You signed up for this, man. I'm sorry. If you want to win now, if you actually want to win a championship to end your career, you're going to have to give up on the nice weather. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, man. You signed up for it.
True words have not been spoken. LeBron did sign up. He knew what the situation was. Everybody knew what the situation was coming into the season. And while it seems like everybody's always waiting for some team or somebody to bail the Lakers out, make a move for the Lakers that just make that team better. Matt said it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Like, it doesn't seem like that's happening here. It doesn't seem like any team's waiting now to bail the Lakers out. This is what this team is. Are they a flawed team? Yes, absolutely. Make no mistake about it. They have some flaws in their construction. But guess what, LeBron? You can't separate yourself from that because you're part of this and you're the reason why most of these players are here and they have the roster that they do. It is what it is. The Lakers are not going to go on some magical run this season. It's okay. You know what the problem is that the Lakers feel like they don't have to deal with the stuff that normal franchises have to deal with. Somehow that they feel like they're going to be that they're going to be abstained from all of that. They don't have to go through the normal ups and downs. This is a team that's going through a normal up and down that franchises at this place with a 40-year-old player is going to go through. There's no story here. It is what it is.
Amen, man. The other thing I'll say here, I want good things for JJ Redick. I do. But with Darvin Ham, this team was a lot more physical. Ivica Zubac bullied Anthony Davis last night. Bullied him. And I do think that they've lost that toughness. They've gotten smarter, but they're also not as physical. And I think that balance is really working out in the negative for them.
Well, do you think that part of the frustration on LeBron's part is that it seems like when he leaves the floor and it's Anthony Davis and whatever combination of Lakers they put with him, the team seems to fall apart? I mean, that was the case at least against the Clippers. Anytime the offense seemed to devolve into Anthony Davis elbow jumper that missed and then would result in transition opportunities for the Clippers.
Now, look, I'm always here to blame AD's inability to raise the team like a superstar should, considering how much praise we give him. Like, we just talk about Anthony Davis in the wrong ways. But look, man, if you look at the rotation guys with over 500 minutes, LeBron is tied with Cam Reddish for the worst on-court net rating. They are a plus 2.8 when LeBron's not on the floor. They've won their minutes without LeBron. They've lost by 6 per 100 with him. Yikes.
This was the first Clippers-Lakers meeting in Into a Dome. I mentioned that at the top of the segment. LeBron airballed a free throw against the wall, the area that the Into a Dome is designated for Clippers fans only. It's their intimidation tactic. It's their college basketball in pro basketball. Is the wall working?
Yes. I mean, the numbers bear it out. The wall is a real thing. God bless Steve Ballmer, man. Need more owners like this. The best thing, I've been there. I want to go and I want to see it for myself. The best thing to me about Intuit is that it sounds and feels from a distance like it's actually not the same concrete block with premier suites that every other building in the NBA is. We got to get back to these buildings having some level of identity. You need to be able to walk into an arena and know which one you're in without looking at the floor. You need to be able to tell what that building is and how it feels. And we're down to very few of those left in the league. And I'm hopeful that Ballmer sparks a resurgence of that.
Hayes, are you into this? Should more teams adopt this into their current buildings or into future stadium builds?
Praise the Clippers, Hayes.
Give your stadium personality. That's what it's about. And to Matt's point, all of these other stadiums all feel the same. So as much as I have my feelings on Clippers and Clippers fans, yes, the wall is a thing, and I'd be blind not to be able to admit it. So there you go.
All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, the Lakers not the only team struggling to find consistency. The Celtics, 8-8 in their last 16. Can the defending champions figure it out? Is there even a problem? We'll hear from John Corrales of the Locked On Celtics podcast coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every single game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. The defending champion Boston Celtics are 8-8 in their last 16 games. Their latest loss this weekend to the Atlanta Hawks came after they held a double-digit lead in the early portions of the fourth quarter. John Corrales of Locked On Celtics gives you some of the numbers and the fix for a problem that might not really be a problem. Take a listen.
Their wins over these last 8 wins, their effective field goal percentage is 59.8%. That's third in the league in their 8 wins. In their 8 losses, their effective field goal percentage is 48.6, 25th in the league. Ultimately, it's just run the offense, run it well. Don't be as lazy as you've been. Just run the offense. I saw somebody tweeted out a stat where the Celtics are like last in passes in their losses. That says a lot because, like, if you're not passing the ball, you're not running the offense well. That's not scheme. That's just, guys, move the ball, pass it, stop isolating as much as you are. And that to me is the end of it. Which my final word is, to me, that's all encouraging. Nothing's broken. It's just, you got to do it.
Just do it. That's a great slogan. Someone should use it. Matt, do you agree? Should they just stay calm and carry on, or is a major adjustment in their style of play or who they're playing in order?
I'll say this first. The Celtics need to be the favorite to win the Eastern Conference and win the title. They're defending champs, still got a great roster. I'm not denying that they should be the favorite. However, boy, is there a lot of cope going on right now with this team. No, they're just coasting. No, they're just lazy. No. Look, here's the reality. Last year, when Boston shot worse than 37% from 3, they were 25 and 14, 64%. This year, they're 13 and 11, 54%. You know what that tells me? They're not as sharp defensively. You are not going to be able to win every game shooting the lights out. You're going to have games where you don't hit shots. You're going to have stretches where you don't hit shots. And last year's team could, but they've leaned too much into the bit. This year, it's just like, well, we're just going to whip the ball around, shoot some threes, and they're all going to go in because that's what happened when we won the title. No, it's not. You couldn't hit anything versus the Mavericks, but you out-defense them. You made that team look inept defensively, but you leaned too far into it. And unless they correct that, they're going to get caught. They are building the wrong habits, Hayes. This team is beatable.
This team is definitely beatable, and I think that while I'm not necessarily as worried about it yet, you got to look at where the rest of the Eastern Conference is going. The Boston Celtics do have the 4th easiest schedule remaining in the NBA per Tankathon. Take that for what you will, but the Boston Celtics are losing their buffer here. The Milwaukee Bucks are 7-3 in their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak. The Indiana Pacers are 8-2 in their last 10. They're on a 2-game winning streak. The New York Knicks, they're right there, only 2.5 games behind the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics need to right this ship, and they need to start getting it together. I'm not hugely worried about it yet, but another week of this, and we could start talking about the Boston Celtics falling from the second-ranked team in the Eastern Conference to 3 or 4th, depending on how the Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks, and Indiana Pacers continue to play.
The Pacers are closer to the Celtics in the loss column than the Celtics are to the Cavs. That's wild.
Yeah.
What? So, okay, I have a couple more questions on this because I think this is really fascinating. And so I'm going to bounce off what you just said there, Matt. What seed would they have to drop down to for you to really super be concerned about them? Not just not defending their championship, but getting bounced out early in the first or second round.
It's all about matchups, right? Like if they wind up in the 4 or 5, like let's say that the Magic go on a surge and another team goes on the surge and they wind up in a 4-5 versus the Bucks. Like, I think that's really deeply concerning again of even like a first round, but I don't think they fall that far. However, like if Milwaukee climbs up to 3 and it's Boston, Milwaukee second round, that gets dicey. You know, for me, it's all about the matchups. It's not about I will say like no team wins the title if they're not a 3 seed or better. There are like 4 examples in 35 years. It's very unlikely that you win the title if you're lower than a 3 seed. But beyond that, to me, it's all about matchups. Like there are matchups that are going to give them problems. I don't think the Cavs, interestingly, are one of them. Like I think that they match up really well with Cleveland for a number of reasons. But like Orlando, Milwaukee, those teams, I think I have some concern for Boston's ability to at least get out clean and easy. That one, I think, those are at least going to be tough competitive series.
Yeah, they're going to be favored in most first-round series that they're at. I love that Matt pointed out, like, depending on if they fall, like, 4th, that 4-5 matchup, depending on what those teams could be. But it is looking more towards what the second round is going to be for this team, because if they do come up against a team in the second round that they just don't match up well against, yeah, they could. And I look at the second round as an early exit for the Boston Celtics. The Celtics should be in the Eastern Conference Finals at a minimum. Anything less than that is them underachieving. So they do need to watch out for those matchups, and they just need to win all the games. So I know that's a simple thing to say. They just need to play better. They have to get better at execution-wise, because teams are starting to figure them out a little bit and figuring out how to play against them. And that's the worst thing that the Boston Celtics can have. If teams start figuring you out, you're not going to run into teams being injured in every a major player being injured in every round of the playoffs this year. It does not seem like. So you need to start waking up.
Well, that was a little bit of what Corrales was saying later on in the episode, was essentially they just need to shoot better because they really can't play any other way. He brought up the Oklahoma City Thunder as an example of a team that sometimes struggles to shoot, but they can use their defense, turn that into transition points and make up for that. But Corrales said he doesn't believe that's who they are. And my question is, what's stopping them from becoming that? Because it seems like they have a number of good perimeter defenders that could play aggressively and get them out into transition, which sort of turns my attention to Joe Mazzulla. Is Joe Mazzulla turning into a one-trick, one-title pony that can't make the adjustments necessary to fight? He's fighting the last war instead of fighting this war. Is there anything to that, Matt, or am I looking in the wrong place?
No, I think you're right, because I think when I kind of started looking at the Celtics this year, and I've been on this for a couple of weeks, and you guys have heard about it here, a lot of it is that they like I said, they've leaned too far into the bit. There's got to be a balance between playing the math game and going so far into it that that's your only advantage. And that to me is the difference. Now, some of this that nobody really wants to talk about is that Drew Holiday does not look like himself. He's not hitting shots like last year. He's getting older. That defensive slide matters a lot. That's a key player that if he is struggling, that changes their equations. They're only plus 0.6 with KP on the floor. That's really interesting. The idea was they're getting KP back, and then instead they've been worse considerably with him on the court. Now, maybe that all straightens out by playoff time. I'm not denying that that's possible, but I think it's really interesting to look at it. And you definitely get the sense in some of these matchups, it feels like the Celtics are trying to prove, oh, no, we can win with the interior stuff. And they don't do as well when they try and beat you with twos in defense. They need to hit their threes. They're reliant on it. And that, to me, I think is a concern. You need to be hyper flexible in these playoffs now, and the Celtics really aren't.
Yeah, the one-dimensional way that they have to play to be successful offensively is something that's going to be concerning, because as the things in the playoffs goes on, there's going to be more teams. The whole purpose of is to force you out of what you do well. And that's something that the Boston Celtics actually were really good at over the last couple of years, is forcing teams out of what they do well. And then they were able to use the high efficiency that they had of the things that they did well to create a bit of a gap there. So the Celtics need to be hyper vigilant on this and watching this and see how it continues to go. Like I said, this next week, I think it's going to be really important for them, because if this trend continues where they're just hovering one win, one loss back and forth, it could start getting ugly for the Celtics team.
All right, it's MLK Day, which means early NBA basketball. I have to go watch the Charlotte Hornets take on the Dallas Mavericks and watch LaMelo Ball, who in all likelihood will be the leading all-star fan vote getter in the Eastern Conference's guard section, much to Matt Moore's dismay, which is what I want to talk about tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy today's action. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other. And we're going to see you right back here on Tuesday's edition of Locked On NBA.